Praise the Lord. Greetings to you all in the matchless and precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So the special program that I would like to do today is an apologetics presentation. So what is apologetics? What is the importance and what is the purpose of it? Explaining all of that will take a lot of time. So what I'll do is later on I'll post a video in our church WhatsApp group detailing all these things. So you can kind of like understand. That is just to save time because this program itself for me will take 20 minutes. So what I'd like to do right now is to have a small role play with the youngsters. Okay. So imagine you're all college going students. Okay. You're all college going students and you're far away from your church, from your home, from everybody. Okay. And you happen to have me as your friend. Okay. I'm your roommate or classmate or whatever. The thing is, I'm an agnostic. So what do you mean by agnostic? Agnostic is someone who is uncertain about the existence of God. Nirishwaradi alla, Ajnayavadi. Okay? He is uncertain about the existence of God. We can find agnostics within our Christian community as well. For example, there are people who are born into the Christian household, okay? But deep inside their heart, they know Jesus is not God or Bible is not reliable, you know. But because for the sake of to parents and maintain, they don't say anything out. Some people do, some don't say it out. They keep it inside their heart. Those also come under agnostics. So say I'm an agnostic and I would like to ask you certain questions about your faith. You guys are ready? Okay. So hey guys, my name is Sean. I see that you're a Christian. So I would like to ask you, I also love Jesus. He was a very good person. He was a good moral teacher. He was a guru who helped a lot of people, right? But the thing is, I don't think that he's God. Why? Because I can't find any facts or evidences to prove that he is God. Okay? But I would like to know, why do you think that he is God? Can anybody tell me why do you think he is God? So you're saying that Jesus is God because he came down and died for us, died and rose again. But you know, if you study history, Jesus is not the only God who died and rose again. In fact, 400 years before Jesus lived, we have a Persian god by the name of Mithras. Okay, now talking about Mithras, his birthday is celebrated on December 25th. He was born of a virgin. He is said to have 12 companions. He also died and rose again. So, and there is one more god, Babylonian Tammuz, Egyptian Horus, Osiris. These are all having similar stories with that of Jesus. So I think Christians invented the story about Jesus. So, anybody else? So you're saying his disciples were willing to die for Jesus. That makes him a god. But then there's another problem because even in the 21st century we have Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, people from all faiths are ready to give up their lives for their own gods. Does that make them all true? No. Even terrorists are willing to give up their lives for their God. But that doesn't make their God true. So I can't be convinced by that. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Joshua, for your attempt. Okay. So you're saying that you have personally experienced Jesus. So let me ask you, have you seen Jesus? So if you have not seen Jesus, how do you know that he is there? Brain. Of course I have brain. What sort of question is that? I have not seen my brain. Okay. So the thing is, in order to prove that I have brain, I don't need to see it. I can just have an MRI or CT scan, right? Radiographers know, right? So I can show that report to you and that can prove that I have brain. But you, on the other hand, don't have enough convincing facts to prove that Jesus is God, right? Okay, thank you a lot. I know because of the time limit, very good responses both of you gave. All of you actually. Okay, so, but since we don't have time, I'm stopping the role play and we'll go to the presentation. So, the presentation is based on the topic, is Jesus God? So, thank you, Jonathan, Danny and Ron. Actually, this was scripted. ഞാൻ അവർക്ക് നേരത്തെ കൊടുത്തതാണ്. Joshua and, what's your name? Rosanna. Those were extra. So good job, guys. So thank you all. So this is what you can expect in college. When you go to college, when you go outside, probably I don't think so anybody is going to study here. Everybody is India or the West. You can expect questions like this as to why you believe what you believe. How will you respond to them? Okay. So for the youngsters, presentation, I'll be asking a question from this presentation. So if you answer one question correctly, this is for you. Okay. I just kept it. Okay. So is Jesus God? Let us analyze this question from a historical and rational perspective. What do we mean by that? We are not looking for personal experience. Even though they are valid, we are not looking into that. We are not looking into Old Testament fulfillment prophecies in the New Testament. No, those are also valid. We are looking at answers how to respond to an atheist or an agnostic. Okay. So mind you, apologetics is a very vast topic. Subjective morality, objective morality, existence of God, origin of the universe, blah blah. But the thing is, we are only focusing on one question because of the lack of time, and I'll keep it as brief and simple as possible. Okay. So why do we as Christians believe that Jesus is God? Because he claimed to be God, right? You can see the screen, I believe, yeah. Because he claimed to be God. So where did he claim to be God? In the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. The Gospels, right? Fine. So what do the agnostics or skeptics say? They say that the Gospels can't be trusted as historical documents. Right? That is what they say. So what we are going to do now, we are going to analyze the New Testament in light of the other ancient historical texts. Okay, we're going to just compare them both. Okay. So first we're going to look at the number of surviving manuscripts of ancient text. So what do we mean by surviving manuscripts of ancient text? For example, imagine this is the Gospel of Matthew, the original Gospel of Matthew, written by Matthew, written on scroll or papyrus or whatever. And the material of this is very short-lived. It can easily disintegrate. Right now we have paper, we have all the this thing. But that time it would easily disintegrate. So what we actually have, someone copied this and made a copy, and that is known as the manuscript or the copy. So we are going to look at the number of surviving manuscripts of each ancient historical text. So the originals of all the New Testament books are not with us. This is the same for every historical book, not just the Bible. Okay. So as you can see on the screen, I know the font is very distinct. We have some of the historical books: Plato works, Caesar, Gallic Wars, Tacitus. Anyone who studied history here? Nobody. So if you have, those who have studied history can understand these books, because these are well trusted secular historical books that is used by modern historians still. Okay. So let's say Plato works. Let's see Plato works. It has 6 surviving manuscripts, 6 surviving copies. Caesar has 10 surviving copies. Tacitus has 20. Okay. Homer Iliad, it has 643 manuscripts. The New Testament, how many New Testament manuscripts do you think are there? 20? 500? Okay. 1,000, we make an exact number. 1,246, okay. Actually, we have more than 5,000 plus Greek manuscripts, more than 10,000 plus Latin manuscripts, more than 10,000 plus other languages. The bar is actually longer than that, but because of the lack of space, I've just put it like that. So what does that prove? That proves that the New Testament has been widely distributed and preserved. Okay? You cannot easily miss it. And if the atheists or agnostics can trust the authenticity of the other historical documents, historical books, and if they can trust it, then definitely they cannot deny the historical reliability of the New Testament. So as you can see on the screen, this is a screenshot from Google. If you type in Google, which is the most attested manuscript in ancient history, attested meaning uttari copies ulla manuscript in vechal, it is the New Testament. Okay. Moving on, next we analyze the gap of the earliest surviving manuscript from the original. Now what do we mean by that? Let's say an original event or an original book was written at a particular year. Okay. But it has been lost in time because of the easily disintegratable material, everything. And the earliest surviving copy that we have is, say, somewhere years after. So the gap between the original and the copy is known as the age gap. Is it clear enough? So what happens if the gap is very big between the original and the surviving copy? legendary stories can creep in. ഐതിഹാസ കഥകളൊക്കെ നുഴഞ്ഞു കയറാനുള്ള സാധ്യതകളേറെയാണ് if the gap is big. And if the gap is small, the copy reflects the original more accurately. Okay? So with this in mind, I would like to bring to your mind, this thing, two historical figures that are well known to us. Okay? This is the timeline. So this is around the time when Jesus was born. Okay? And you know Alexander the Great, right? He's a very famous king. He lived 356 BC to 323 BC. And the earliest surviving manuscript detailing his life is found in the 10th century AD. That is the earliest copy. And the age gap is, okay, the screen is blocking. The age gap is 1,300 years. 1,300 year gap between the original event and the earliest surviving copy. The next we have the Islamic era, which is 570 to 632 AD. So their prophet, the biography about their prophet is found in the 9th to 14th century AD, the earliest copy. And the gap between them is more than 200 years. Okay? Now finally we come to the New Testament. When was the New Testament written? You studied in Sunday school, right? It was written in, by secular historians say that 65 to AD 100. Christian historians say it was written earlier, 55 to 90. But let's take the case of secular historians, 65 to AD 100. And do you know when when is the earliest surviving copy of the New Testament? It is this picture, as you can see. It is Ryland's Library Papyrus P52. It is dated AD 125 to AD 150. So the gap is less than 100 years. In fact, this papyrus is actually from the Gospel of John. And by secular historians, the Gospel of John is said to be written in AD 100. So the earliest, if you go, it is, you can say, more or less 25 years plus, which is very much less compared to the 1,300 year gap and the 200 year plus gap. This is just for your reference. This is the earliest surviving New Testament physical fragment that we have. It is this very small size, ഒരു credit card in the size ullu. Okay, it contains passages from the Gospel of John chapter 18 verse 31 to 33 on the front side, and the back side is 37 to 38. Okay? And it is preserved now in John Ryland's library in Manchester, England. Fine. What does that mean? That means that we have a historically reliable and trustworthy document that reflects the original to a large extent when compared with other historical documents. Okay, there is one thing, misunderstanding. Just because there are some books with age gap big and the surviving copy is less, does not mean that they are totally unreliable. I'm not meaning that. We are just responding to those who deny the historical reliability of the New Testament. That is our aim in this presentation. Okay. Second question. Second claim made by the skeptics is that you believe in Jesus only because of the Bible. ഈ ബൈബിളിൽ പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് മാത്രമല്ല നിങ്ങൾ യേശുവിൽ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നത്. ഇതൊരു ക്രിസ്ത്യൻ ഇൻവെൻഷൻ അല്ല. It is not, what to say, it is not something that was recognized by all people. Because you have the Bible with you, you believe in Jesus. How to respond to that in a way is that in this picture you can see the photos of, these are the photos of secular historians. They are not Christians, they are not believers of Jesus. They are secular historians who lived during the time of Jesus and that of the early disciples. Okay? So let us go to one of them. Okay, they comprise of Jewish and Roman ചരിത്രകാരന്മാർ എല്ലാവരും ഉണ്ട്. None of them believe that Jesus is God. Okay? Josephus was a Roman historian. He said that Jesus was a wise man. He said that his followers reported the resurrection. Tacitus, a Roman historian, said that Jesus was called the Christ and that his followers were called the Christians, and Jesus was executed under Pilate. Pliny the Younger, another Roman historian, he said that the followers thought that he was God. That's what all of them. There are many others, but I don't have time to get through all. So these are all what they say about Jesus. So what does that prove? That proves that non-believers cannot say that Christians invented the stories about Jesus and Christianity. They cannot say that. Why? Because we have outside sources, non-biblical sources, which prove that the stories about Jesus and that of the early disciples that are consistent with the New Testament. Okay? And second point is, even if the entire New Testament accounts were lost to us, we could construct a modest historical picture of Jesus Christ and early Christianity that is consistent with the gospel. So even if we didn't have the New Testament copies, I'm not saying that we can get an accurate representation, but we could get a modest historical picture of Jesus and that of early Christianity. Finally, the final question and the most important question is, did Jesus really rise from the dead? Okay, this is a $1 million question. Why? Because Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he says that if Christ is not risen, then our preaching is empty and your faith is also empty. Which means, if Jesus did not really rise from the dead, then whatever I am saying to you is useless. All of you coming here listening to me is also useless. So, how do we respond to this? Unfortunately, we don't have time enough. This will take also another more than 10 minutes. But what I will do is, I will refer you all to a book. It is called The Case for the Resurrection of Jesus, written by Gary R. Habermas and Michael R. Licona. Gary R. Habermas was not a believer. He investigated the claims for the resurrection of Jesus, and he found, he wrote this book. All right. The most important question to you youngsters: how do we respond to this information? I've given you some details about historical reliability, about accuracy, age gap list. How do you respond? Have you got the urge to read especially the New Testament on a daily basis? Have you felt the urge to read the Bible, knowing that it's a very strong document, and to the people who say that it's totally unreliable, we have facts and evidences to prove on the contrary. So may God enable us to boldly claim our faith to those who ask us. And that is what 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 15, Peter says, always be prepared to give an answer to those who ask you of your faith, but do it with gentleness and love. Just as C.S. Lewis says, C.S. Lewis, for your information, Chronicles of Narnia, Chronicles of Narnia. Right, it's a very famous children's book. It was written by this man, C.S. Lewis. He was an atheist, a British theologian. Later on, he was met by another Christian, and he explained to him the reasons for believing, and he made this statement: Christianity, if false, is of no importance. If true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. So either you're with Jesus or without Jesus. There is no half-truth in Christianity. Either Christianity is true or it is not. So that is the claim that he made. So may God enable us, knowing the facts and evidences that we have for our faith, to be witnesses for Christ in the days to come. Okay? So finally, as I promised, I hope you all went to the presentation. So only for the youngsters, okay, not for the seniors, because you guys, okay. So youngsters, be ready. I'll be asking one question. Listen it carefully, and those who answer first will get the prize. Okay. In the passage, I mentioned the earliest surviving New Testament physical copy. From which passage of the Bible does it mention? Where? Yeah, that is right, but Christo mentioned the chapter, so we will have to. It's very confusing, but since you're ready, okay. Jaden, you will give the prize. So I request the pastors. Thank you all for your patient listening, and God bless you all.